name is Rachael. So I've been contemplating a lot lately, and in this contemplation, my divine team, my higher self, my spirit guides, spirit fam, are always in my ear. And as I was meditating today, the thought that came up today was there's a different way to live. There's many ways to live on this planet, but in your society, there's only push this one narrative, especially in the westernized society. In the modernized society, there's pushed as a way to live, the way to live, which is work hard, achieve, work hard some more, achieve more. And there's nothing wrong with any chosen path. But the contemplation that was arising for me today, because I don't really do burnout and I don't like working myself to death because my body just doesn't allow me to. I either get sick really quickly, my body starts breaking down, or I can't even allow myself to overwork myself because I'm so sensitive. I'm highly, highly, highly sensitive to illnesses. And don't get me wrong, I have a very strong immune system and very strong things in place to ward off things of that nature. But you know how people can just push themselves into the brink of death? I'm not one of those people. I'm very sensitive. The moment I start getting an itch in my throat or a pain in my left ovary or a tightness in my chest, I just back off because I'm just too sensitive. I already know that intuitively I'm so in tune with my intuition that I feel like I'm going against the grain of what my soul is, the flow of life, going against the flow or the current of my own natural rhythm of life, right? And so this different way of living that I've been contemplating is, I was thinking about, back in ancient times, or just even people who live in the world that are in more obscure places, right? People who sort of live off the land or live in tune with nature. In our modern society, where we've been brought up to believe that, you have to work hard in order to even have your basic needs met, your basic necessities met, I just find it so intriguing, right? And I'm not really anti anything, but there are certain things in our system, in our capitalistic society, that just does not work. And I think a lot of things that have been arising for me is kind of going against a lot of the programming that we've been brought up in, regardless of what label we label it as. But I was just thinking, when we were in tune with nature, and some of us, not all of us, were always in tune with nature, but some of our ancestors were in tune with nature, right? And we just lived off the land, and we lived in a communal style of living. There were trees that were bearing fruit for us to eat off of, and we had simplistic ways of living, right? There was no what are you going to grow up to be? You know what I mean? There was none of that, right? You just grew up and you were a member of society. You contributed, maybe you picked the fruit or picked the berries for the day, and then you would just participate in the communal living, right? Or the tribal living, right? You had little duties of just taking care of basic needs, right? But because we've gotten so far away from that, and greed is so huge in our society, right? It's this greed culture, this never enough energy, this never satisfied energy, right? It's this green-eyed monster that everyone is chasing after, or that's within everyone, this silent unsatisfaction that drives everyone on the planet. That even if you have all that you need, you still want more because it's never enough, right? And it's just this programming that is drilled into us that, one, we are never enough. And no matter what you achieve or get, it's never enough, right? And so this constant greed culture that we live in, of never being satisfied, of never being content, of never being happy, of never being fully fulfilled, of always needing. And I don't think it's just I don't want to blame it on programming. I think it's also part of human conditioning, or just the human way of being, is that as we've progressed and grown and evolved, there's this natural desire to want to evolve and want to get bigger and better and more, right? And there's this idea that bigger and better and more is the good thing to go after, right? But I feel like it's always this sort of the scale. We're in the ma'at, right? That balance, that scale of, just being one way too greedy. And I feel like this is where we're at right now, and we need to really come back to center and rebalance ourselves, right? In this culture where bigger and better and greater is not being checked, you have a society where a lot of people's basic needs aren't even being met, right? And it's so simple to me. I feel like, especially in the abundant world that we live in, all this land that we have access to, right? All this, that surrounds us all. There's no reason why anyone should be starving, why anyone shouldn't have food, shelter, and clothing, right? With just this abundant nature around us. And not to mention the millions of houses and dwellings that are not being lived in because of greed. But it's fascinating to me, because I find that this culture that we live in is just so imbalanced in so many ways. Like, I feel like our basic needs, everyone's basic needs on the planet should be met, right? Food, shelter, clothing, right? Like, I feel like that's a basic. Like, I don't feel like we should have to work for that, right? Like, I feel like our society is just kind of really imbalanced, and I think it's just because it's based upon greed, like where certain aspects of our society can go into other countries and take away their way of living, right? Like, that's basically how our society was built, especially here in America, where colonizers and people came and stole land and massacred millions of people and, burned down billions of crops and, place food in specific ways so that they can monetize it. I don't know, a lot of things that have been done over the centuries is just really perplexing to me. And the fact that we live in a society where people are always on the go, burnout, and, sickness, disease, and illness is profiteered. And just the way that we live on our society, it just feels so interesting to me, like there really is there's judgment. There's definitely judgment arising for me from my point of view. But I also just feel like I feel like as awakened beings, as spiritual people having this human experience, right? Clearly there has to be a different way, right? I'm not saying that we should just abolish capitalism altogether. I'm not proposing anything, but I just feel like there's definitely needs to be more checks and balances, especially because of these rising everything is rising in terms of inflation and all that stuff, right? And the disparity between the haves and the have-nots is just way more prominent and prevalent and predominant. And even people in the middle class who were quote unquote comfortable and stuff are even complaining now. When you got people in the middle class and even the people in the rich class are complaining about basic things that they never used to have to worry about because their expendable income is no longer there. Now because of rising prices and inflation, the middle class expendable income is no longer available, right? And so that's becoming very apparent now. And it's just very interesting, the fact that we live in a society where you have to work to meet your like not to say that we shouldn't work, but it just feels like in ancient times, or just, I don't know, in other cultures where we're just more connected to nature and connected with peace and connected with that, like, balance of scales and that balance of energy, there has to be a better way of living on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense that there's an abundance of vegetation all around the world, and yet you still have people who are struggling to feed themselves and their children, or I just find it slightly disturbing. But anyways, so that thought was just kind of weighing on me. And so another thing that was making me think about was, remember when it was almost like a flashback of a past life where it was like life was really simple. It's kind of like, I don't really know how these people live because I've only seen maybe a few movies on it, but sort of like the Amish people live. This is very simple, right? Like, they're very close to nature. They make everything handmade, they're not super into technology at all. They're very simplified, and not to say that we need to return back to that, but I was having sort of a flashback of that kind of way of living where it's just very simple and you don't take more than you need, right? Like, you just live a very simple life. And not to say that we need to regress our progress that we have made, but I think that if we could become smarter and more wise and actually utilize technology to bring about more prosperity and abundance and shared prosperity and shared abundance versus this greed and prosperity and abundance being gate kept, right? I think our lives and the planet would be just way more in tune and just in harmony, and we wouldn't be feeling this like constant pressure, right? This rising pressure of stress and overwork and burnout and fear and anxiety and depression, you know what I mean? And the rising rates of suicide, even though we have cell phones and technology, you would think that that would actually be lowering, but no, those are going through the roof. And the rising rates of heart attacks and diseases and, cancer and all the stuff that you would think because of technology or because of our knowledge that these rates would be lowering, but no, they're going up. And the reason why is because of greed. We're completely imbalanced. We're in this very imbalanced culture and the way that we lead our lives, And I just feel like there's a different way of living, you know what I mean? I feel like, is there a way? And I'm posing this question because I don't know. I don't have all the answers. But I'm posing this question because it's been on my heart. And I know there's other activists and people out there who are presenting different ideologies to the world that I've run across. And I will link some of those people that I've discovered and who are bringing valuable insights below. But if you have any other insights, feel free to post them in the comments below because let's make this a conversation. But the question is, how can we move out of this greed culture into more of a balanced sort of communal living culture that still allows for innovation, right? Because I think the fear that pro-capitalists have is that if we get rid of capitalism, then that means that innovation and forward movement and coming up with different ideas and products and things of that nature in terms of innovation in society will die, right? And so I think that's the idea that communalism, and I'm not pro-communism at all, but this idea that sharing or getting rid of the dog eat dog way of living will dampen or hinder innovation, right? So how can they coexist, right? How can we, because each of us as souls have varying experiences and things that we've come to explore and experience, right? Like maybe you've come to explore pottery making, or you've come to explore being a singer-songwriter, or you've come to explore writing, or you've come to explore science, or you've come to explore many things, right? As mosaic souls, that's what we've come here to do. And so naturally in this ebb and flow, the reason why many of us struggle is because we're really just trying to get our basic needs met, right? A lot of people are struggling because they're just trying to keep the lights on, you know what I mean? Like just trying to keep the lights on, just trying to make sure you got food on your table, just trying to make sure you got the basic needs met, right? And if those are taken care of, if you didn't have to think about that, then you would have more energy and time to play, and your mosaic soul would be able to express its many different things, right? So that's just the question I'm wondering and thinking about, that has been weighing on me for a while now, and that has been in sort of this contemplation. But it feels like my spirit family, they've always been inviting me into a freedom paradigm, which is how I've kind of manifested my life into this way where I have those things in my life, right? My basic needs met, food, clothing, shelter, right? Like, and I don't have to worry about those things being taken away from me, And it's weighing on me because of the conversations that I have with other people and, just feeling that energy. I'm an empath, so I'm picking up the collective energy that I feel is very prevalent and predominant in our society. And so that's my question, do you guys believe that they can? I know that it can coexist. I just don't know how. I don't know the how yet, right? Like, if you guys have any ideas or examples of other social constructs or societies or, communities and cultures that live this way where innovation is accepted and promoted, but yet and still there's still communalism and sharing and more than enough to go around type of energy, where we were just in tune with nature, right? We're in tune with the cycles of nature. We were in tune with Mother Nature, right? Like harvest time, we're in fall time, but we're about to go into winter, right? And so I would really love to know if anyone has any insights on that, because that's something that has been weighing on me and thinking, I'm like, God, there has to be a different way of living, right? Like, it's sort of like this energy where I want other people to experience more freedom that I've been experiencing. And I want the freedom that I've been experiencing to be more predominant and prevalent in the world, and not just a me thing, but like everybody to experience more of this, you know? How can we all experience more freedom? How can we all experience more joy and not worrying about how we're going to pay our bills, right? How can we all experience more of that in our lives, you know? It shouldn't just be a few, select few who don't have to think about that, right? And it's not because I've become rich or super wealthy, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell anybody, but the point is, it's just, I've just moved into a different energetic flow of it. And now I'm grounding more and more of releasing of the fear and all that other paradigm that my spirit fam has been helping me to release, you know? But it's just, I'm really curious about that, you know? And it just really bothers me to high heavens, the fact that this is still an issue, right? Why do we still have struggling to meet our basic needs when that should be a given? And the things that, you know, pro-capitalists that are worried about the deadening of innovation, or the deadening of freedom of whatever, freedom of speech, or freedom of, you know, creativity, or freedom of being able to create and something from nothing, right? Like a business, free commerce, right? Like being able to have freedom of commerce and to be able to create a product and then to sell it and create, you know, capital, right? But if all our needs are met, right, and you didn't have to think about where you're going to lay your head at night, you had more than enough food to last you, and you never had to worry about how you're going to pay your light bill, your water bill, your basic, you know, the basic things that you need to bathe yourself, clean yourself, cook and eat and all that stuff, right? Your water bill, gas bill, light bill, all that stuff, right? I feel like there's this fear that if we're not working, I think what happens collectively is like this fear of like, oh, well, if I don't work to live, what will I do with my life? Right? There's that's going on energetically. But then there's also this fear of, you know, like I said, the end of innovation, or the end of free commerce, right? If we go back to more of a communal way of living. But then there's also this fear of not having a purpose or not having direction, right? Because we've been so programmed to make our lives be based on the rat race, right? You get up, you go to work, you worry about how you're going to pay this bill. Oh, you only got $50 left in your account, but you got $400 worth of bills. And oh no, how am I going to get the money? I gotta work overtime. I gotta pick up some extra shift hours. I gotta do this, right? And this constant anxiety, right? This constant back and forth of how you can meet your basic needs, right? But if all that was erased, right? And we lived in a society where greed wasn't the main motivating factor, where the people up top, the corporations, the people who were at the top of these corporations actually cared about their workers and gave everybody more than a fair wage, benefits, you know, we had universal health care, or, you know, something of that nature, where we had more readily available access to healthier foods, where, you know, governments and local governments weren't banning people from planting gardens in their own backyards because they don't want, you know, people to eat healthy, right? Or you didn't have a monopoly on seeds and food seeds and things of that nature because one company wants to monopolize, you know, food production on the planet, right? Like all this kind of evil shit that's going on the planet, right? Like, I just think about it. I just wonder if all that stuff went away and we just had more love, joy, communal living, caring, and we didn't have to strive, you know, and people would learn to tame their inner demons of greed and learn to be happy with what they have. And the more that arises, just let it naturally evolve versus making it this goal of having to get more. And if I have to get more, that means I have to step on 20,000 people in order to get there. And I have to eliminate half the human population. It's just all this bullshit that, you know, kind of comes up when greed is the source behind a lot of action, right? Anxiety, fear, power, you know. So yeah, those are just some thoughts that I've been pondering. And I know that there's a different way of living, because I know I watch certain YouTubers here on YouTube who talk about this, share their insights and ways of living. But I don't know mass societies. I don't know of mass societies that live this way, you know. And if they do, they must be like hidden deep in some like unfound island, right? Or deep in the Amazon or something where they haven't been touched, you know, where they're still in tune with nature and connected with, you know, just basic stuff. You know, you're not worried about, oh, what am I going to grow up to be? Who, you know, my value is based upon how many accolades I've gotten and at what age and how many assets I've acquired or material things I've acquired. My worth, my self-worth and my value in society is based upon these things, you know. And if all that kind of went away, right, like, I don't know, I just find it interesting. And I can't say back in like Egyptian times that we didn't have hierarchy, because I definitely know that we did. I mean, with pharaohs and, you know, kings and queens and all that stuff, there's definitely still hierarchy. But I don't know, I wonder, was there ever a time on our planet where we were communal? Was there ever a time on our planet where we were just less greedy and more in tune with nature, more in tune with each other, more loving and kind, and had a structure that allowed for innovation but also allows for people's basic needs to be met? I don't know. Maybe I'm a unicorn, or what's that? The name of unity? No, it's the name of. I'll post it up when I remember. This is the name of that kind of society where you think of. There's this, you know, you have rose-colored glasses. Maybe that's the type of society I'm believing in. I don't know, maybe it can't exist on this planet because humans are just too unevolved. I don't know. There's a lot of people that need to wake up on our planet. So, I don't know. I don't know if this will ever happen in my lifetime, but it would be nice to see us as a society start moving in that direction for sure. But yeah, just wanted to share some thoughts and ideas of a simpler way to live, you know, where you can share your ideas and share your creativity and share your innovations and still have time to live life in between, you know, not have to worry about money, not have to worry about basic shit that should be inevitable for all humans on the planet, right? I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, I'm done chatting. Feel free to share any insights or ahas or resources below. And be kind and gentle and caring, or you will get blocked. So otherwise, as always, flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't, because you are divine. You're a divine being, and your soul knows exactly what you've come to explore and experience. So I will chat with you guys when I chat with you guys next time. Peace, love, and light. If you resonate with this video and my work, then consider becoming a patron at mosaicsoulsworld.com. Thanks to my current patrons, and I hope to see you guys on the inside. Catch you next week. Peace, love, and light.